Bapak Ibu semuanya. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya. Salam kebajikan. And this is a special greetings from West Java. If I say Sampurasun, you will have to reply with Rampes. Okay? Sampurasun! Okay, thank you very much, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. Welcome to Grand Hotel Preanger for ConnectiCity 2023. Please give a warm applause for this event. This event is presented to you by the government of West Java, of course supported by West Java Creative Economy and Innovation Committee, British Council, Indonesia Creative City Network, Institute Franse Indonesian, Mezing, Jumpstart, and Info BDG. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, ConnectiCity 2022 last year was held at the historical building in Bandung City, which is Gedung Merdeka, where the Asian African Conference was held at 1955. Today, at ConnectiCity 2023, this is also held at the historical landmark at Bandung City Grand Hotel Preanger. For over a decade of century, Grand Hotel Preanger became the symbol of pride of all Dutchmen in Bandung. And this hotel was redecorated in 1929 by the famous Dutch architect C.P. Wolf Shoemaker with the assistance of the first Indonesia's president, Insinyur Soekarno. So please give a warm applause once again to this beautiful landmark at Bandung City Grand Hotel Preanger. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, first allow me to welcome the special invited guests who have presence here, both online and offline. The Honorable His Excellency, British Ambassador to the Republic of Indonesia, who are present online. The Honorable Member of West Java People's Representative Second Commission, Pak Yunandar, also have joined us today. Welcome, Pak. The Honorable Head of West Java Tourism and Culture Agency, welcome Pak Beni. The Honorable Director of Interagency Relation from the Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy and Multilateral Team of the Republic of Indonesia. The Honorable Country Director, British Council, Indonesia. The Honorable Head of Second Cities from British Embassy to the Republic of Indonesia. The Honorable French Cultural Attaché, the Honorable German Cultural Attaché for Indonesia, the Honorable Director of Institute Franse Indonesian Bandung, the Honorable Speakers and Moderator, and of course, welcome to all delegates, to all participants who have presence here both offline at Grand Hotel Preanger and also online at Zoom application. I would like to extend my warmest welcome to all of you. Thank you very much for being able to be here, and it is a pleasure to meet all of you without mask. That is one thing for sure. Please give a warm applause because we have now entered the endemic. Last year, I was hosting the ConnectiCity 2022, and we are all still wearing a mask. And today, we are not wearing a mask, so I am so grateful to be able to see and welcome each and every one of you here in Bandung, West Java, Indonesia, of course. And to kick off our meeting today, first of all, let us say grace to the God Almighty. Because of His continued blessing, we are able to gather here both offline and online to participate in this event. And it is such an honor for me, Agi Rahmawati, to welcome each and every one of you at Bandung, West Java, Indonesia. And before we start the whole series of event, let me inform you that this event will be conducted in English. And for the online participants who joins through Zoom application who need assistance in translation, click language interpretation to enable or disable it. Bapak dan Ibu hadirin yang kami hormati, saya informasikan terlebih dahulu bahwa keseluruhan rangkaian acara ConnectiCity 2023 akan dilakukan dalam bahasa Inggris. Untuk itu kepada Bapak dan Ibu yang hadir di sini yang membutuhkan jasa terjemahan ini bisa langsung saja bergabung melalui aplikasi Zoom dan bisa langsung mengklik atau memilih language interpretation untuk mengaktifkan terjemahan supaya Bapak dan Ibu dapat dengan nyaman mengikuti keseluruhan rangkaian kegiatan ConnectiCity 2023 ini. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, to kick off our meeting today, we will now listen to Indonesia's national anthem. And for those of you who are present here at Grand Hotel Preanger, please rise. seated again. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, next I would like to ask to all participants and to all the guests here to let us bow our head and pray, mainly for the success of our event today, and may today's event can create a concrete action to develop creative economy industry in West Java and in Indonesia. And also, may we all be given safety and health. Prayer begins. Prayer ends. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, now it is time for us to witness the opening remarks from His Excellency British Ambassador for Indonesia and Timor-Leste. To Mr. Owen Jenkins, would you please?
Good afternoon and welcome to ConnectiCity 2023. My warm greetings to the Minister of Tourism and Creative Economy of the Republic of Indonesia, His Excellency Bapak Sandiaga Salahuddin Uno, Governor of West Java, His Excellency Bapak Ridwan Kamil, Head of Tourism and Culture, West Java, Bapak Beni Bakhtiar. This year's theme is the future of the creative economy, creative hubs as the core of community resilience. Since first being held in 2019, ConnectiCity has served as a dynamic and strategic platform for exchanges of information, ideas and ambitions about creative hubs, cities and the economy between West Java and the world. It's also a useful forum for serious deliberations about how the creative economy sector can help drive development at the local, national and regional levels in a post-pandemic world. In the UK in 2019, creative industries contributed £13.2 million to the nation's economy every hour, totalling an annual contribution of around £115.9 billion. The sector continues to grow, and with significant strengths in research and development, the UK is a global driving force for innovation in the creative industries. We would like to use this to support West Java to realise its visionary creative economy agenda. Through the British Council's leadership, creative hubs across Southeast Asia have received support since 2014. Collaboration is at the heart of the Council's work. Together with Kreasi Jabar, the West Java Creative Economy and Innovation Committee, the British Council has provided capacity building on the management of creative hubs to over 20 creative hubs in the West Java region across 2 years. The British Council has also shared their in-house expertise as thought leaders and their commitment to research and evidence by producing the ConnectiCity Policy Brief in 2022 with Kreasi Jabar, supported by ICCN, the Indonesia Creative Cities Network. The British Council's work in Indonesia showcases the UK's deep interest and commitments in driving the arts, culture and creative economy agenda. The UK government also shares West Java's priority to increase access to digital literacy, one of the West Java government's 7 priority programmes for the creative economy. Through our Digital Access programme, we launched a 3.5 billion rupiah project with Common Room Network Foundation in 2020 to provide internet access for Cipta Galar community in Sukabumi, West Java. Through this project, we strived to ensure that vital health messages could reach everyone in the community. We've also supported the digitalisation agenda of West Java provincial government through a collaboration with the UK government's digital service. Distinguished guests, speakers and participants, this year is an important one for us all. Indonesia is leading on the world stage in several fora, including through its ASEAN chairmanship. The UK is the newest ASEAN dialogue partner since 2021. We're also embracing a post-pandemic world. I now invite you to see 2023 through this lens as we look to renew our commitments and strengthen our creative economy action plans in order to drive timely progress and deliver meaningful results in people's lives. ConnectiCity's 2023 mission is to disseminate and strengthen the creative economy agenda and to implement the creative economy roadmap and the policy recommendations that were formulated in recent global fora, such as the Urban 20 Mayors Summit and the World Conference on the Creative Economy in Bali. The UK remains committed to supporting this important endeavour every step of the way. I hope that through this international conference we can, firstly, enhance multi-stakeholder collaboration towards common objectives that will benefit regional, national and the global creative economy, especially in a post-pandemic society. The UK wants to be an active collaborator on this front. Secondly, we want to continue to grow the partnership between West Java and the UK for many years to come, to continue the valuable exchanges with the British Council and the UK's creative industries. And finally, we want to ramp up work on data and research in the creative economy to help practitioners, communities and policymakers make evidence-based decisions. I'm especially looking forward to hearing progress on the Creative City Index, where the UK stands ready to share its knowledge and expertise on this matter. Terima kasih banyak.
Yeah, that was the opening remarks from Mr. Owen Jenkins, His Excellency, the British Ambassador for Indonesia and Timor-Leste. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, ConnectiCity is West Java's signature annual event since 2019. This is a commitment to provide sharing platform related to creative economy and creative hubs. ConnectiCity 2022 focuses on the issue of creative economy, creative city, creative hubs, cultural and creative industry. And last year's theme was strengthening the role of cities in handling our climate and pandemic crisis, and had created Bandung G20 Communique on Creative Economy for Recovery. And today at ConnectiCity 2023, the theme is about the future of creative economy, creative hubs as the core of community resilience. The government of West Java sees this as a crucial role of West Java in leading the progress of creative hubs and communities at the local level and their networks at the national and international level. Therefore, please give a warm applause for West Java government for their proven commitment to creative economy. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, next we will listen to the welcoming remarks from the head of the committee of today's event, which will be delivered by the Honorable Head of West Java Culture and Tourism Agency. To Mr. Beni Bahtiar, would you please?
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang, good afternoon. Sampurasun. I want to say sorry because Mr. Governor would not attend in person and I represent the Governor to deliver this remark. And Mr. Governor maybe tonight join with us to gala dinner. Good afternoon to all distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to ConnectiCity 2023 International Conference and Creative Economy. Talking about West Java province consists of 49.2 million people, or almost reached 20% population in Indonesia in 2021. West Java has the highest domestic and foreign investment and also the highest export creative economy contributor in Indonesia. Dear Honorable Minister of Tourism and Creative Economy, His Excellency Bapak Sandiaga Uno, Dear Honorable Governor of West Java Province, Mr. Bapak Muhammad Ridwan Kamil, Dear Honorable International Speaker on ConnectiCity 2023, Dear Honorable National Speaker on ConnectiCity 2023, Dear Honorable Head of Communities, Organization and Creative Economy Communities of West Java Province, Dear Honorable Media, Invites and all of online audience. There are top 3 subsector creative economy in West Java, namely craft industry 27.1%, culinary industry 26.4%, and fashion industry 16.7%. According to startup ranking 2021. West Java also has the second largest number of startup companies in Indonesia. Moreover, Bandung City has the highest in distribution of video game developer and publisher compared to another city in Indonesia with 15.71% distribution. Bandung is also selected as a UNESCO Creative City of Design together with Singapore, Budapest, Kaunas in Lithuania, Detroit in USA, and Pueblo in Mexico. As a creative city of design, Bandung inside one, building a thematic public park devoted to the UNESCO Creative Cities Network, which feature diverse artistic representation of the creative city. Second, enhance collaboration with other creative cities through creative festival, joint event, and workshop. Third, establish 30 creative hub and supporting 100,000 new creative entrepreneurs over 5 years to enhance the local creative economy. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, West Java is committed to support creative economy by providing great creative hub, establishing a committed to creative economy agency or CREASI, formulating CREASI economy roadmap, and also supporting creative economy program and activities. ConnectiCity is a signature event of West Java for creative economy since West Java consider creative economy as one of the most important sector in regional development. ConnectiCity also refers as a platform to disseminate, update, exchange, and exhibit creative economy development in West Java and up to regional and international level. ConnectiCity 2023, the future of creative economy, creative hub as the core of community resilience is the fourth time of ConnectiCity 2023. This year, we have invited creativity economy actors from 7 countries, including Indonesia, to share knowledge and experience here offline and online. I believe that this ConnectiCity event will give some positive and sustainable impact, not only locally in West Java, but also globally in Indonesia. Therefore, I invite all of these seminar participants to actively contribute by giving suggestions and ideas to drive the creative economy and in developing the economy and sustainable development. Last but not least, I hope that this ConnectiCity event can produce policy strategies, relate and creative event and creative city that can be considered and implemented by the government at all levels to create our common inclusive and sustainable future. Billahi taufiq walhidayah, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Gubernur of West Java Province Muhammad Ridwan Kamil.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, before we are moving on to the next agenda, first let me inform you that during ConnectiCity 2023, there will be 5 sessions held. The first 2 sessions will be conducted today, and the other 3 sessions will be conducted tomorrow. And during this event, there will be several side events, such as workshops and exhibitions held at Grand Preanger Hotel. So if you went out from this ballroom and then you see at the foyer there are some exhibition, you can actually visit there as well. And then there are also going to be welcoming dinner tonight at Gedung Sate. That is also one of the historical building in West Java, which happens to be the governor's office. So I really hope that all the participants here can meet the governor of West Java later tonight. And on the 3rd day, all delegates and participants who come to Bandung will be given a city tour to the creative industry places which are terribly unique. So we are looking forward for your excitement here at ConnectiCity 2022. And also we are looking forward for your participation during the question and answer session later after the session is finished. Okay, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and now it is time for us to enter the first session, which will discuss about People Connect, acceleration of creative economy development by cultural hubs, creative actors, and community centers. And also, right now, I will invite the moderators on duty. She went to Hans University of Applied Sciences Groningen on 2005, where she took international communication, and on 2006 until 2009, she took international studies at Monash University, Malaysia, and in 2010-2011, she went back to Monash University, Malaysia, and took international business. She has various work experiences, but stayed at British Council Indonesia the longest, where she first started as program officer at Arts and Creative Economy, and then went on as program manager, promoted to senior program manager, showcasing arts and creative industry, and now she is the head of arts and creative industries at British Council Indonesia. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming head of arts from British Council Indonesia, Miss Camelia Harahap. Okay, how are you, Miss Camelia?
Very good, thank you.
Is it Cami or can I call you Cami?
You can call me Cami.
Okay, hi Cami. Thank you very much for joining us at ConnectiCity 2023. It is such a pleasure for us to having you here, and I will now handle the first session to you.
Great, thank you very much. What a very lively start to the first day of ConnectiCity. Very glad to be here today. Good afternoon and welcome to the first panel of ConnectiCity Conference 2023, the future of creative economy, creative hubs as the core of community resilience. So my name is Camelia Harahap, or Kemi for short, and I'm the head of arts at British Council Indonesia, and I will be moderating this first panel today. ConnectiCity is West Java's signature annual event, which was first established in 2019, and it is a commitment to provide a sharing platform related to the creative economy and creative hubs. Through this event, it showcases the role of West Java in leading the progress of creative hubs and communities at the local level and their networks in the international and national level. We hope that this event can continue to support and strengthen the creative economy agenda for West Java, Indonesia, and global stakeholders. So focusing back on the first panel session with the topic of People Connect, acceleration of creative economy development by creative hubs, creative actors, and community centers, we have a very exciting panel today featuring 5 speakers from across Asia and Europe. May I welcome the panel, which includes Alexandre Poutin from Cité du Design, France, Alex Sihar from the Ministry of Education, Culture, Research and Technology, Indonesia, Deepa Naik, who is joining us online as a creative consultant from the UK, Hamdan Abdul Majid from Think City, Malaysia, and Matt Turpin from Nottingham City of Literature, UK. May I welcome the panelists to come and join me on stage? Anywhere. So each panelist will have time to present about their work, and by the end of the presentations, we will have a Q&A session where we'll be inviting questions from the audience as well. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce and maybe hand over directly to Hamdan as our first panelist from Think City, Malaysia. Would you like to introduce yourself and then start your presentation?
Hi everyone, welcome to ConnectiCity, 4th ConnectiCity 2023 in Bandung. I'm Hamdan, an economist by training, and have become a city maker in the course of my journey. I will share the journey that we have made, and hopefully that will provide insight to what we do. Should I be standing? Or
yeah. Slides. Can we have slides, please? wait for the slides.
Sure.
Should we maybe introduce the panel, the rest of the panel? Maybe start from Matt.
Good afternoon. I'm Matt Turpin from Nottingham City of Literature. We have been a City of Literature, I'll talk more about this actually in the presentation, but we've been a City of Literature since 2015. I've been working there since 2014. I'm also a writer, I'm a lecturer and a publisher.
Hello, I'm Alexandre Pedin and I'm head of Material Resource Centers from Cité du Design in France. It's I explain you after. It's a place where you can find a material process, and it's really a nice place to connect people and know-how.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Alex Sihar. It's supposed to be Hilmar Farid, as the photos there. Supposed to sit here, but suddenly he got summoned by the minister today to Yogyakarta, and I got straight, you go to Bandung and talk to the ConnectiCity. So this is me. I'm sorry, you got me instead of Hilmar Farid. Okay, I'm here as my capacity as the special staff for the Director General of Culture and Program Coordinator for the Dana Indonesiana, the Indonesian Endowment Fund for the Culture. And maybe we're going to talk about that later in the discussion about how the Endowment Fund can push forward the creative hubs in Indonesia. Thank you.
Thank you, Pa Alex. We actually have one more person online, Deepa Naik. Is Deepa online and maybe can quickly introduce herself?
Oh gosh. Hello.
Hello. We can hear you, but we don't see you.
Oh.
There we go. Hi, Deepa.
Hello. Yes, I'm Deepa Naik. I'm a creative consultant and researcher based in rural Cornwall in the UK. My work focuses on arts, heritage and cultural sectors, but previously I used to run a knowledge hub and publishing company in London.
Great. Thank you, Deepa. It's great to see you. We hope that you are here today, but unfortunately, we still have you online though.
Yeah. I'm a bit daunted by being on this massive screen in front of all you people, but hello, thank you.
You look great, don't worry. And I guess this brings us back to the presentation and slides, now that we have Hamdan's slides ready. So I hand over to you, Hamdan.
Thank you, dear moderator, Kami. So Think City is actually an organization quite unique in its establishment. We are in the mission of making cities livable together. By nature, we are established by government. Next slide. And we Thank you. So the Think City, I'll share with you a quick update about the journey that we have made in terms of how we are working in Malaysia to transform cities. As I said earlier, we are an impact organization established by government, but operates as a private sector entity driven by communities. So we are very much working at the intersection between government, private sector, and communities. So essentially, we are kind of both a top-down and a community-driven organization that very focused in terms of rejuvenating and rebuilding cities and making it more people-friendly. Next. So the core of our work and the mission that we are set on has been rooted and anchored on culture and creativity. For us, that we believe that culture is not just a set of belief, but it's a set of action around which we have worked on in terms of how do you drive this agenda of transforming our cities. So we started working in a small city called Georgetown way back in 2009. When in fact, I think in the early days of our conversation, we were also kind of connected with the Bandung Creative Cities Forum, and we kind of led and showed an approach how we could use many small interventions to bring big change. Based on that experience, we kind of expanded and now we are working in Malaysia and beyond. Next. So obviously we kind of said earlier that we use a lot of small projects to drive transformation, and as we drive transformation, we also ensure that we are able to crowd in private sector participation and community involvement actively, because we believe that city is not made by what I call professionals like me and us here, and also by government, but rather it is made by the people who own the city. And essentially what we believe is that how do you empower them, enable them, and equip them to bring change and transformation, and how do you use creativity and culture as an inspiration to bring the change that each of the cities need. Next. So as an organization, we are very focused on culture-based economic development as a core, and we focus on fixing the city through our urban mechanics program, and building resilience has been one of the key things that we are now very focused on. And lastly, the evidence-based decision making. Next. Now, maybe just a bit of reflection, since I'm doing the kind of opening remark, I thought I would put out some facts and figures for reflection. 10 years ago, these numbers were half these numbers which I'm putting out here, meaning that 3.5% of global GDP was accounted for the creative sector, but today it's more than 6%. So we are seeing doubling of these numbers. The creative sector today is now worth nearly more than $4 trillion. Now that's another 100% increase from a decade ago. Now what is becoming important is that this cultural sector has becoming a new engine of growth. An economy based on culture is no longer a dream, but rather is becoming a reality. And in fact, our own experience demonstrates the fact that investing into culture and creativity is a big driver to growth and development. And in fact, I think it's going to become the new big thing that will reshape how economies in the world will start looking at into job creation. Next. Now, I would like to just share with you our own experience using the Georgetown model that we have done. Started in 2009. The implementation is still ongoing. But what was interesting was that 2008, Georgetown was listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site for culture, for its unique, characteristics and so on. But the city was in a state of decay. In large parts of the city was in what I call in some form of decline and stagnation. Even though this was one of the most dynamic port city in the 18th and 19th century, but with the advent of what I call post-World War II, with the advent of each nation state, the idea of a free port was lost, and the city core was felt into disuse. So we had to figure out where do we reinvent the space. So UNESCO listing was because this was the largest collection of unique vernacular architecture, British colonial architecture that was still intact as a result of rent control, and they wanted to kind of figure out where do you transform. So through a systematic program by incentivizing private sector, using grants, working with communities to inject new lease of life, step by step, building by building, area by area, we saw a big change that emerged. Next. So these are kind of changes that we saw, buildings that were abandoned, were repurposed and made to become new creative hubs. These are kind of transformations that you can see and witness. Next. And even public spaces that were in state of decay and disuse, we had to kind of reorganize and reinvent the spaces. Next. To transform it to become public spaces that really becomes a new magnet for the city, to bring new lease of life to areas and so on. Next. Now, obviously, it is not only the physical hardware of a place. We also looked into the software, the intangible heritage, the culture, the creativity. So in this regard, there was a lot of activities that were done as the part of process. How do you reposition a city back into a global landscape? Like I said at the beginning, Georgetown was no longer in the radar screen, but a kind of 5 to 10 years later, it has become the new focal point of culture and creativity in Southeast Asia. So much so that today Georgetown has bounced back and is beating above its weight. Next. Now, the model that we believe in Georgetown, maybe some lessons that we learned, was that it was about power of small, power of doing many, many small things that can inject momentum and probably what they are called reduce the risk of bringing change and transformation. A lot of times we look at top-down transformation and we want to do large-scale projects, but the ambition sometimes sits on the shelf and doesn't get realized. But if you are able to inject and bring the people with you by incentivizing them to be part of the process of change, then you are able to actually actively kickstart and generate the momentum. Then using evidence-led regeneration, data and other things, eventually push forward. What you see today is actually the outcome of what I can say that the work that started way back in 2009. All of a sudden, a small city, island gets, get mentioned globally, and big change has come about. Next. Now, this just are data points just to say that the kind of shift that you can see. As part of the work that we did, we also made sure that it was very evidence-led, so there was a lot of baseline data that was collected so that we can then go back and measure the change and demonstrate how places have actually become vibrant, it has become active, it has become a new lease of life has emerged. These are just representation of that. An example of how density of hotel has kind of, you can look at 2 time periods as a result of what I call, by creating an enabling environment, empowering people, you are able to crowd in private sector participation to inject a new lease of life back into the city. Next. Now what we believe in is that the lessons that we have heard from Georgetown are things that are really not very realizable, in a sense that it's not impossible to be done. And this experiment is what we have now replicated in other parts of the country. Next. So this is another example in Kuala Lumpur. So it's not a case of a unique case, whether this is something that we systematically now been exploring and developing to other parts of the country. Next. So in the case of Kuala Lumpur, this was the historic core where Kuala Lumpur started as a city, and this was where the national capital also was established. But over a period of time, the city went through a kind of a huge urban expansion. As a result of it, the core of the city was kind of became a donut ring. So much so that, it was totally hollowed out. The central government has moved to a whole new region called Putrajaya. The business center has moved to a whole new region, and so on. So this place fell into disuse and decay, and we had to figure out, what do you really reinvent this place? So we kind of, again, re-anchored using culture and creativity as the core. And we worked with the city government, and we kind of put together a new plan in terms of how do you drive and reinvent, again, similar to the approach that we've taken in Georgetown, using grants, where we kind of started working on infrastructure improvements, incentivizing programs with private sector and communities. Today we are well underway in terms of positioning back Kuala Lumpur, the downtown Kuala Lumpur, as a new creative hub of Malaysia. Now this is some of the issues that we had to deal with: accessibility, dealing with the issue of congestion, abandoned buildings, limited activity. The city becomes totally dead at night, underutilized public spaces, and problem of city services, issues of what I call resilience, needing to manage the issue of excessive rain, flash floods, and homelessness. So these are the realities that we are kind of to reprogram back in terms of how do you reimagine and repurpose and crowd in investments to drive change and transformation. Next. Now, option was always the case that we could leave it, let it stagnate and decline, or we could kind of tear it down and rebuild an entire new city with, or we could regenerate, use the existing historical urban fabric as a foundation on which you could anchor and rebuild using culture and creativity as a driver towards change. So, again, this is another example of a program, not only to say that you work in large cities, but we also said, look, there are many parts of the country that you can call it forgotten places. So an example of this is that northern region of Malaysia, there are a series of what I call historical landmarks, including one particular site where you had the remnants of Homo erectus from 2 million years ago, and the site was, archaeological site, and it's a fantastic discovery. We had a local village that was, a local village and town that kind of exists close by to this particular site. Now, similar to it, we had multiple sites like this. So in the northern region, we had to figure out how do you repurpose and rebuild this historic region as a whole. So we kind of conceived the concept of saying that, why don't we use and rebuild this to become a network of historic urban spaces, historic natural and historic spaces that you could repurpose and reinvent. So this is the kind of landscape that today we have been able to transform and bring change into, whereby there's been a series of what I call, again, using power of small, many small projects, incentivizing communities. In this case, actually, we work directly with the communities as opposed to purely the private sector, and empower them and enable them and equip them to bring change and transformation in those communities. Now, this just at the beginning. This is less than 18 months since we started. We have early results to say that we are confident to say that this would be a kind of new magnet for attraction of people and so on. We have a small video that we will show at the end of this presentation that you can see the change that has come as a result of how we are rebuilding this network, so that eventually we are looking at and saying that even places that are forgotten and left behind can be reinvented and repurposed using culture as a creativity as a core to drive transformation of a place. Next. So some reflection and some sharing which I thought I would leave behind to the audience here. Next. Obviously, important, I think, key takeaways as we look at is that we are, the conference title says that we need to accelerate the path towards building creative cities as a driver to the economy. But it's important that we seed ideas to build this network in a more dynamic manner. Culture should evolve, and we should accept that because we need to evolve culture to adapt to the changing circumstances of how we look at things. Creation of cultural hubs is an integral part of urban regeneration strategies. So as what has been highlighted, I think this is going to become the core, and it's important as what the ambassador has highlighted earlier in the opening remarks. Driving community-based urban approach and building ownership, not tourism first or mass tourism approach. I think this is important. Building for your own people, doing things for your own citizens, and in making it places for possibility for your, what I call for your, your own people is going to become the key driver to attract others to come. Increasing visibility by promoting sites as a gateway is important. But importantly, I think post-COVID, what we realize is that there's been growth in local visitation. Harness that and build this so that you can actually open up a much larger part of the country. Because when you depend on global tourism, they usually try to focus to 2 or 3 destinations. But a country like, say, whether it's Malaysia, Indonesia, and others, you got a lot to offer. And I think the local, what you call visitors, are the ones who can unlock the potential. Partnerships is key, and I think this is going to be the key towards how can each and every one of us here work in collaboration, drive these partnerships, and also build together. Next. So with that, probably I conclude my presentation and a short takeaway on the video so that we can see the kind of change and transformation that's emerging as part of our Northern Architourism project. The Northern Architourism program that ThinkCity has embarked upon is an ambitious program to connect our rich historical heritage, cultural sites, natural sites, archaeological sites, monuments that we are richly endowed with in the northern region. This program encompasses the northern region, and when we say the northern region, obviously it covers the states of Perlis, Kedah, and Perak and Penang. But when we look at the cultural sites, they're not necessarily bounded by geography alone. It's about how they came about in being. This is probably one of the early sites where you see evidence of meteoric strike and the preservation of what has now been known as the Perak Man. And subsequently, we have seen different layers of history that has come about in this particular space.
Di Kedah, melalui kajian Sungai Batu ini adalah sebuah tapak peleburan besi, diberi julukan relau besi dunia. Antara petikan daripada ucapan Profesor Stephen Oppenheimer tentang tamadun Sungai Batu ialah this is a discovery that changed the landscape of world history. Ilmu kejuruteraan bahan ni ialah perkara yang penting untuk menjadi sebuah negara yang maju. Jadi itu yang kita pernah ada dan ini yang kita hilang.
The first step is education and appreciation. If people know about the places, in their own states or their own country, and they would be able to sort of physically connect to all the layers of history and heritage and meaning of being in a multicultural society.
We have cultural areas, rich traditions, food culture. Within 2 hours of travel from any one point, we can easily access a lot of these sites, and they are all available and present. these are infrastructure-ready places that now we are working on the last mile, improving the quality of the offering, enhancing their visibility, and also improving the storytelling of these places. Because, you know, when you visit a place, it's important that we understand why it's significant, why it is important for us to preserve and protect it, and also more importantly, why it relates to each one of us.
Saya suka Malaysia kerana Malaysia mengamalkan satu konsep integrasi di mana setiap kaum dan setiap bangsa dapat mengamalkan kebudayaan mereka, bahasa mereka dengan bebas. Tetapi kita harus tahu ada perkara yang boleh menyatukan kita. Antaranya ialah tentang sejarah penubuhan negara ini. Jadi di situlah kekuatan sesuatu negara dengan mengenal apakah kekurangan dan apakah kelebihan diri mereka.
This is critical and important as part of building the cultural heritage offering for visitors to strengthen these offerings by virtue that we want to protect it, conserve it, and have it available for future generations.
History is a journey through time, right? Heritage is space. Culture is something that is reproduced through your actions and your thoughts and your belief systems and your values. The more we protect them, the richer our life will be and the richer our societies and our nation will be.
We start our journey working with local actors and local partners. The success of this, we believe, will encourage others to think about the opportunity that is present in this cultural heritage tourism. We have the foundation to build a globally attractive cultural heritage offering. This is something that Malaysia would be able to build a new engine of growth, and hopefully that we will be able to contribute to support these efforts to make this a success.
Thank you very much, Hamdan. That was a really remarkable example of how you use creativity and culture to drive transformation of a place. And one of the key takeaways that I got from your presentation was how important it is to actually focus on a community-based approach, so like the power of small, and not a kind of tourism first or touristic agenda. So I think this is something that we might be able to talk about more later on in the Q&A. But I'd like to move on and invite the next speaker. I'd like to invite Alexandre to do his presentation. So Alexandre is from Cité du Design from France, and could we have Alexandre's presentation up?
Thank you. First, I would like to thank you for this organization and to invite me and represent France. Thank you to all the team, to ConnectiCity and French Institute. Thank you very much. And second time, I try to explain you why Saint-Étienne it's a real hub for creative, unique place for the creative hub. So the first part is to really explain what is La Cité du Design, and the second part is some example to present a collaborative project. Okay. So this one, it's Cité du Design in France. Maybe a certain person ask us, where is Saint-Étienne? Saint-Étienne is about Middle East in France, just to close Lyon. And this space is a really old space because it's all the different building except the contemporary building. It's old weapon manufacturer. And it's unique for one thing because it's the only place where you have the same place and where same establishment, higher school of design and the Cité du Design and the same place. And this one is really important because it's present the philosophy of always collaborate with different parts. After we considering a third part, it's like international biennial of design, because we produce the international biennial of design, organize and products. Okay, next please. Okay, a little bit of story, but really quickly. There is interesting about one thing. This story starts, there is about 2 centuries. Because at this time, there is on Saint-Etienne area a lot of manufacture, like fabric manufacture and metal company and manufacturer. And at this time, it's difficult with the competition with other company, and some different companies say, oh, it's possible to change and innovate. And at this time, there was a creation of the fine art school by the initiative to the industry. And this one is important because we have 2 different sides of Saint-Etienne. You have an industrial part, and you have a fine art school at the same time, and you have an art part. So after in 1990, this fine art school, it's the first fine art school in France to create a design department. And it's one specificity about this fine art school. To create that. After, in 2005, we created the Cité du Design, but it started really small things. And at first, step by step, we continue to try to make an evolution of this huge project. And we have inauguration in 2009, sorry, with on the photo on the top with the contemporary building. In 2010, we are a member of UNESCO Creative Design City. And the next step, it's a project, the name is Cité 2025, and I explain you later. Okay, and the Cité du Design, we have 3 complementary missions. The first is teaching. The second is dissemination of culture of design. And the third is support company, student, teaching. Okay. Teaching, why? Because we have a higher school of design, art and design. Okay. And it's a small school. We have about 360 students and between 400 students. We have a national art diploma. We have 7 national superior diploma. We have 2 double master degree. And we have a research cycle. It's unique in France. And we have really 2 parts, but actually in France, on the higher school, we must connect each department with a laboratory. It's a new laboratory, like, next please, yeah. And actually we have 5 laboratories connected to each department, and we have some laboratory like a research in a design object, like in art, like in a numeric part, and yes, 5. And actually there is a construction of the new 1 laboratory. Okay. So, dissemination design culture. It's really important to really disseminating this culture to people understand and everyone. So for that, we have 2 spaces to produce and organize 3 exhibitions per year for general public and experts. And after we have Next, please. No, that doesn't work. Yeah. We organize International Biennale of Design. It's the first International Biennale. It was in 1998, and it's organized by the student and a teacher at this time. And step by step, the policy would like professionalize this event to organize different things inside. It's during the last biennale, it's about 100 exhibitions inside this huge event, and it's about 262,000 visitors for each biennale. Until now, until the last, the duration of this event is like 1 month, and we test during the last biennale 4 months. To try. It's important to understand one thing. In Saint-Etienne, it's really the policy and every people like to test and imagine if it's different thing, and after test, and when it's test, if it works, we continue. If it doesn't work, we make another project. And 4 months, we notice it's too longer for people, for organization, and inside the International Biennale, you have a lot of different things, like exhibition, workshop, oh, I forget the word, sorry. Yeah, thank you. After, inside the Cité du Design, we have a store, we have a kind tour and a library, and it's ready to explain what is design for a general public. Next, please. Yeah, thank you. This one, it's interesting. It's the last tool we created. It's a new space. It's about 400 and 500 square meters. It's new space for testing and learning the methodology of design for family and children. It's a free space. It's open. It's really nice to really disseminate the design culture inside each family. And it's a lovely place for children to learn, teach, and experiment methodology of design. Next, please. Thank you. Support. Why the Cité du Design support company in public establishment? So next, please. Yeah. Saint-Etienne is the first city in France to integrate a design manager inside the policy. And this one is really important because for each new project, like an urban project or all different projects concerning the policy, we have a designer to improve the different projects and for testing. And on the two pictures, you can see a project really interesting, but we don't have enough time to explain this project really quickly. It's like during International Biennale, where all the city become a showroom for a new prototype for a company and designer, like urban furniture. And during all this time, we can testing new furniture, urban furniture, and the public can test in reality. And during the time, the general public can vote to, okay, I would like this one in my city because I think it's nice. And at the end, the laureate and the city buy and install definitely on the city the new prototype. And step by step, we have a lot of different prototypes everywhere on the city. And this one is interesting because it's really connecting the general public with policy and the life on the city. Next, please. No, it doesn't work. Okay. Yeah. And support because we organize a lot of design awareness workshop. open workshop during an international biennial. We try to make a research with the general public. Everyone can participate to some workshop with different topics, and it's really interesting because basically for each new project, the company stay alone. And here it's really interesting to open the problematic of a company, of public policy or whatever. So next, please. Yeah, and we support different company. We help to find a designer to work with the company, to help to a description of the problematic, and we help to find a funding too. And this one is really important because sometimes the company are little bit afraid to work with a designer because it's sometimes it's another word. Designer is like considered like an artist, and it's really sometimes far away from the company or industry. And we are the position is really to help to connect the designer with the company. Next, please. This one, it's a material resource center. It's a unique place, only open for actually for the company, student, and teacher. And it's a place to really search and connecting different know-how. We have about 3,050 sample of different material with 9 families, and it's really interesting to start a project with material and process. For example, basically the most I don't have the word. When you start a project, you imagine a project, and it's after you try to connect a material on your project. And on this place, sometimes you can choose another way. It starts to discover a new material, and with this material or this process, you imagine a new project. And it's really interesting because basically the material open your mind for different projects. It's really interesting to discover a material because it's infinity world, the material and process, because nobody can each material and each process. It's impossible. For example, on this material research center, you can find a classical material, but you can find some different, more bizarre sample of material, like transparent concrete, like ceramic proof bullet, or sample of hollow memory chip, and different things like that. So next, please. It doesn't work. I don't know. Okay. Yes, and this material resource centers, we have one space. It's like a showcase to present different know-how. Know-how, it's like, for us in this space, it's like an exhibition during all the years, change each time we meet a new company or new know-how. And on this showcase, it's possible to present a sample of material, it's possible to present a process or a little object to present real know-how. It's possible to present, it's for a craftsman, designer, artist, company, and whatever. And after, we have 2 online database on the material and the process of fabrication. So, okay. Creative hubs, because in the first time, yes, Saint-Etienne benefited to a really nice network about different institutions, national and international, to communicate and share best practice to the different projects, like similar like here. So, Saint-Etienne is a member of UNESCO Creative City Design, and it's the only French city and it's we are really lucky about that. And on this picture, you can see during one international biennial when we receive all the Creative City Design UNESCO around the world. And it's really interesting to, like this, to share about a good practice and project, and to think what is really nice. So, okay, this one. It's a project started in 2019. It's a project now the director of the higher school said, okay, now each year we restart this project. This project is really simple. It's the goal of this project is create a prototype through the creativity to the student, design student, to valorize the different know-how of companies. So each year I must find about 5 or 6 different companies, and I present to the student, and each student must choose which company it will be work. Each group visit a company. It's a company explain the know-how of the company. After the subject for the students is really simple. It's imagine a design project to valorize the know-how of the company. And it's a real experience, and this project is really interesting because we have third part. We have a student, we have a company, and we have our establishment, the Studio Design and higher school. And for a student, it's the first time they work with a company. It's really important to learn how it's possible to communicate, to work with a company. It's not really simple for a student because it's the first time. For the companies, the benefits, it's really interesting because some company hesitate to work with a designer, and this project, it's first. Sometimes it's the first time the company work with a designer. We explain it's not a professional designer, but it's possible to try a new project. And at the same time, it's really time to for a company because it's a time to explore different field where the company doesn't have enough time to explore. And after each session, we have different milestones, and we have a milestone about in March where the company must choose 2 projects. And 2 projects, the project is stopped, and for the 2 persons, the project continue, and the student will be give to the company each information is necessary for the company must produce the prototype. And how part it's valorize this all different prototype and the collaboration between the student and the company during a specific exhibition during an international biennial design, and we present the first exhibition and the last biennial. So, and we have some different objects. Each time it's a new story. Okay, no. Okay. Yeah. And yeah, actually it's 127 students participate to the project. And we have about 38 prototypes realized, and you can notice it's totally different. You have a bag, you have a card, you have a table, you have all different things. It's really totally free. Second time, it's important to know for the student the value of the prototype too, because basically during a study, it's really nice for study. Basically everything is free. It's And at the end of study, the problem is student realize the real life, and basically not it's free. So another project of collaboration is during the last International Biennale, and my direction asked me to create exhibition during International Biennale, and I'm really interested about two subjects. It's like biomimicry and the sensitive approach. And I just asked me, oh, okay, I'm interested, but it's impossible for me to manage all this work alone. And for this reason, I asked to different institutions, like CBIOS, it's an expert in France in biomimicry. And we worked two at the same time with a design agency specialized in biomimicry. The name is Big Bang Project. And we work with engineer school specialized in sensitive approach. And it's really nice to work with these different stakeholders because each institution or studio are bring a knowledge on this project, and it's really interesting to think if you make something alone, okay, basically we say maybe you are ready quickly, but you don't will go far away, and it's better to work in collaboration. And yeah, and this one is one of part of this exhibition during International Biennale. On the right photo, for example, during the last week, I visit Indonesian company, really nice, MYCL mix, I don't remember when it pronounced, and it's like similar with the Italian. It's like a sound panel, a proof panel created with mycelium, and it's really interesting part to discovery. We have a different possibility to manage our world, I think. And and the last project I present you, it's like a collaboration with a fashion school. And basically in France, the school less some resources to work and create different things. And at the same time, we have a lot of different companies produce different things, and you have a waste. And the idea to connect the company with this school to create this collection. The name is Recreation. It's like a creation again. And for the fashion show during International Biennale, it's a similar thing. It's like connecting creation and valorization during International Biennale. And for example, on the left photo, you can see, I don't have the word, this part, it's created only with the waste of marble and stone. And it's really interesting because the creativity arrived to connect every people connecting, like a company, student, professional, political policy, and it's really, really, really the future, I think. And I know, it's the last. I'm sorry, I forget just this one. This one, it's a future of project of Cité 2025, and we hopefully look like that. The idea is to really open the district to the general public and connect with different people. It started, there is a long time. For example, I show you on the next slide. Okay, I wake up. It's better. On this, oh, it's a really bad thing. Okay, okay. This one is a new contemporary building where you have an auditorium, where we have a space for exhibition, library. And this building is an office building for studio design actually. And step by step, all the different buildings, all manufactured in Saint-Étienne. And we renove each building step by step. We are the first institution to arrive in this district. After there's a higher school arrive here, all this building is a workshop. And this one is for the course, for the photography and the computer and whatever you want. And this one and this part, you have a space for a company, different company, creative company like architecture, designer, artist. After we continue with nursery and I don't have the word for the less school. I don't remember the name. Sorry. We have a radio. After we have one restaurant, and the future is we move all the person on this building on this part here to open this building and more open to the general public. After the material library resource centers will be here, and the new library here on this part. And all this part, we keep this part for the event, this building for experimental cooking, and this part really important on the next slide. It's a huge project to, perfect, to create the first national museum of design in France. And it's really important because Saint-Étienne are really a city to industry and at the same time artistic. And we have a contemporary museum, and the contemporary museum are the second collection in France in art and the first collection in design. And it's really important to connect and this one. And my conclusion, it's for me, the future of human being, yes, lies in cooperation and sharing and not in competition. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Alexandre. And I think it was also a really interesting example of how a city culture is not just for the experts, but also for everybody. And you kind of showed that through having a design manager integrated in the city, but also how the people are able to be involved in testing prototypes with products that are created by the industrial sector. So I think these are really some interesting examples of how a city should be for everybody. So thank you so much for that presentation. And we need to be moving on to the next part, which is I'd like to invite Deepa Naik, a creative consultant from the UK. Deepa is joining us online, and unfortunately she cannot join us in person, but we are equally excited to hear about Deepa's presentation. So Deepa, over to you online.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes, okay, I'm there. Oh my goodness. Thank you to the organizers for this opportunity to participate in this discussion, and my fellow panelists. It's been really interesting to learn about your work. I must admit that as a researcher, I'm much more comfortable behind my books and computers, so this is a little out of my comfort zone, but I'm going to do my best, and I'll present some research that I completed in Cornwall last spring, aiming to address the question of how to measure culture and present the results as an argument for investment in the cultural sector, as well as sharing some lessons learned. And I'll share my screen now. So Tresaurus Kerno, which is, means Cornwall's treasure in Cornish, was a pilot project initiated by the Cornwall Museum's partnership and it sought to test how culture can help to revitalize towns and villages. And it also wanted to test the appetite for arts and heritage and the feasibility of building a heritage hub that would house a permanent heritage collection, have a cafe, workshops, and selling opportunities for creatives. It was funded by a grant from the UK government's Community Renewal Fund, which was valued at just under £600,000. And I'm going to take some time to introduce the project and the approach which was taken, which was very specific for this rural context, and then go through some of the key findings and impacts and lessons learned and recommendations. So in terms of the rationale, the project was initiated to address the decline of high streets across Cornish towns and villages with a matrix of new activities that included cultural events, skills and training workshops, and creative sector support. So town centres in Cornwall have been decreasing year on year since 2013, with fewer and fewer active retail units. And this is partly due to the rise of online shopping, high business rates, and competition from out-of-town supermarkets and kind of large retail parks. So traditional high streets have struggled to adapt to the change from a retail economy to a more mixed retail and experiential economy. And this is happening across the country. However, in Cornwall, the decline has been exacerbated by its biggest industry, which is tourism. So Cornwall has a unique geography and settlement pattern within England. It's a medium-sized county. It's the 13th largest of the 48 counties, and it's surrounded almost entirely by the sea. So except here, I don't know if you can see my mouse, the top where it's bounded by land, which is Devon. Its length is 78.5 miles, and then its width ranges from 5 miles at its narrowest to 43 miles at its widest. And it's this very handsome coastline that draws tourists. So although visitors bring multiple benefits and opportunities, including jobs, income, fresh energy, innovation, etc., it also brings with it some challenges. So in 2019, approximately 5 million people were visiting every year, primarily during the peak season of April to September. So rather than being spread out evenly across the year, a rapid influx of visitors in a relatively short period of time produces considerable fluctuations in occupancy rates, revenue, employment, and seasonality means that the villages and town centres can thrive in the busy spring and summer, but really struggle during the quiet autumn and winter months when activity reduces significantly. And another issue is that tourism is also spread unevenly across the region, with visitors preferring the coastal towns and villages. So this brings some environmental impacts. Coastal areas are ecologically fragile places with a high degree of biodiversity, and this large influx of visitors to these delicate landscapes can accelerate environmental degradation, and it also increases pressure on local infrastructure, such as narrow rural roads, rubbish disposal, wastewater, and sewage. A critical impact of tourism is actually also on the built environment, such as housing stock and land values. So in some coastal areas, up to 42% of the housing stock is now a second home. So this inflates property values and the price of goods and services considerably. Local communities are really struggling to remain in their villages and towns. So this project was initiated to address that seasonality by testing whether a cultural program could draw local people to their villages and town centres during those quieter shoulder months. And one last point I want to make about the rationale and the approach is going back to Cornwall's unique settlement plan. So while all larger English counties have at least one town with a population of over 40,000 people, The most populated town in Cornwall, you can see here, St. Austell, with just over 27,000 people. In fact, 40% of the population in Cornwall, live in settlements of less than 3,000. So due to this dispersed and sparse settlement pattern, amenities are not centralized and residents often travel significant distances to access services. Time travels within Cornwall can be lengthy because there's only one main dual carriageway and narrow country roads, limited bus and train services. So that means that travel times within Cornwall can often take longer than comparable distances in other counties. And lengthy travel times and associated costs are the most significant barrier for creatives to access services, training, and selling opportunities. So there was this real need to situate culture and creativity within towns and villages across the county. So as you can see from this map, the project was located in all these series where you see those dots, and they successfully reached, from the top, from the north to the south, inland, as well as the coastal areas, and also a range of places from St. Austell, which I mentioned was the largest, to all the way you can see at the bottom, Porthcurno, with a population of just under 400 people. And you'll also notice that the dots are in those two colors, orange and green. And that's because there were two distinctive delivery mechanisms which were tested, which I will talk to you more about. You'll see that one, it's called feast towns, which are orange, and then the museum towns, which are green. So, what happened is they were 5 anchor museums in 5 towns and cultural organizations that were each offered a grant of £20,000 and asked to develop projects that met the aims of the overall initiative. And then in contrast, the feast towns took a bottom-up approach in which they did an open call for proposals, they announced that, they put together local panels in each of those 5 locations with artists, professionals, interested residents, and they reviewed and selected the proposals and selected the most appropriate applications. And most of the submissions were unique responses to the brief. So you can see here a little bit about what happened. So drawing on their local insight, the creatives produced a variety of scales and activities. There were folk music festivals, street performances, guided heritage walks, arts and craft workshops, book launches, etc. And you can see that in some locations that you can see that the scales really varies. You've got, say, in Penzance, 211 artists involved and just 3 imbued. And this is because the approach was to really develop place-based cultural programming that was really specific to the locations. So something that might work in one location just wouldn't translate to another. For example, a street performance might draw large crowds in one town, but not in others. And so these activities, in some locations, so this whole project was spread across a few months, and some people chose to really program all their stuff over a very full weekend, and others like quite intimate series of events that happened across that time period, a couple of months. And what really worked well is that the emphasis was not on quantity of events or audiences, but really the quality and the impact, which is what I will talk about next. So impact analysis was informed by 315 surveys filled out by attendees, 50 surveys from creatives who delivered workshops and events, in-depth stakeholder conversations, and an evaluation workshop. So to test the appetite for cultural events, audiences were asked how often they visit museums or galleries or participate in arts or cultural activities. 21% of people said that they visited cultural activities 3 or more times a month. 28% said they went at least twice a month, and then 37% went 3 times a year. 8% said 1 to 2 times a year. So there's this kind of even split between really highly active at almost 50% and those that were kind of medium. And this project successfully engaged with a range of residents from both those groups. And I think that there was this wide appeal due to the range of the cultural offer. When audiences were asked what they most valued about that activity, number 1 was socializing and meeting new people, followed by acquiring new skills and learning, and that was followed by an increase in confidence. And you can see that in one of these comments I'll pull out. It was truly amazing. This is what I and a lot of other people need. I truly hope we can continue to have these workshops in towns for a while. Please stay. It has helped my self-confidence a lot, and I get to meet new people of all ages. Feedback on the quality of the cultural offer was also positive, with 90% rating activities as very good or good. So we wanted to understand the impact of this activity on the actual towns and villages. And so 58% of the people surveyed said that that cultural activity was the main reason for their visit. And then to understand if this increase in footfall had a positive effect on local businesses, 81% of people surveyed visited other local businesses or shops before or after their activity. And this is reflected in a comment which I will read to you. Participating in a number of these drawing and printmaking workshops has opened my eyes to some of the beautiful features and buildings in Launceston town centre that I hadn't noticed before. I've also rediscovered some independent shops that I've gotten out of the habit of supporting simply because I've not been walking through the town centre. So, what would continue to bring people to the high street, town and village centres? Almost 40% of the attendees said that they visit their high streets less than once a week. And when asked what would encourage them to spend more time in their high streets or towns or villages, 27% chose, firstly, cultural activities, followed by, which was 27%, followed 18% who said cultural centres. And those were the highest 2 percentages of all the options, which ranged from sports centres, community centres, cafes, independent shops, libraries, etc. So what were those impacts on the communities? TK, this TruthSource kernel, positively impacted the attendees and the creatives as well. It impacted positively on their perceptions of their towns and villages. Both groups reported feeling more connected to their community, an increased sense of pride and more welcome in their local areas. And they were also more positive that they can experience culture and arts locally. And in terms of how these impacts were measured, the attendees and the audiences were asked a series of scalable questions, like how strongly they agree or disagree with a series of statements, like I feel I'm more part of my community, etc. You can see them on the bottom there. Creatives really valued the opportunity to engage with their local communities and to develop new projects and to build new partnerships. And this really speaks to the importance, which I think other people have covered here, about relationships and social connections, collaborations, and particularly in a rural area. Some more impacts on the creative and cultural sector. 89% said involvement in the project had a positive impact on their practice. So 82% of people developed new partnerships And interestingly, some of these new partnerships were within the arts and cultural sector, but also with non-creative businesses such as cafes, schools, businesses offering technical services. So going forwards, capturing the cross-fertilization beyond the creative sector will be important in terms of making a case for further investment. 66% of creatives reported immediate outcomes of those new relationships, including collaborating on new workshops, exhibitions, festivals within the next 6 to 12 months. I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment. Catch my breath. That was a race through the highlights and the successes. But there were also many lessons learned and things that could have worked better. And I've pulled out a few that I think might be most relevant for our conversations. So in terms of what worked really well, that bottom-up approach was a key success. Meaningful engagement was built into the process, which resulted in original interventions that showcased the distinctiveness of each location. The process was also transparent and rigorous, and thus established trust and a genuine connection with the wider community. It was also helpful for the museums and the creatives to receive 90% of the grant funding upfront. And so this allowed them to develop their projects swiftly, including purchasing materials, hiring venues, commissioning artists, and promoting the events without delay. So it was very efficient and effective and appreciated by the creatives. The deliverers were also appreciated, having localized funding and yet being part of a Cornwall-wide initiative. So they were able to develop projects for their local audiences and communities, while also connecting to the wider cultural sector in Cornwall. And that cluster of investment and activities gave their work momentum and energy and a sense of connection. In terms of what could have worked better, there are two things that I would like to draw up. There were quite a few, but two I think are relevant for our conversation. The creatives, rather than, of course they would appreciate more money and more investment, but actually they really valued more time. So had they had 12 to 18 months to develop their projects, they would have valued that much more, because there was quite a fast turnaround. It was 4 to 6 months from receiving the grant to developing their project. So something about allowing more time, more thinking is important. And then rather than pre-selecting the museums and the cultural organizations that were given grants, an open call for proposals from heritage sector and creative organizations would create more meaningful engagement with the brief and would be an opportunity for these museums and cultural organizations to develop unique projects, test new ways of connecting to their local audiences, rather than continuing to do what they usually do, which is what ended up happening. So developing a local panel to review submissions from the cultural and heritage organizations, very similar to the micro grants, which were given directly to the creatives, would build that community voice into the process and ensure that activities were relevant to local audiences. So this research has contributed to the lead organization, the Cornwall Museum Partnership, decision not to develop a large-scale heritage hub in Cornwall, which would have been a massive endeavor and investment. But rather than introducing a new element into the creative landscape, they're developing localized and diverse approaches that will enrich the local creative and cultural offer where it is currently situated. And kind of reminds me of Hamdam's comment, the power of small. And this is an approach that centers the local creativity and communities and has the potential to avoid or limit the homogenizing aspect of cultural-led development, while still positively contributing to cultural tourism, creating opportunities for creatives to stay within their local areas and impact their communities, and expand their audiences and local markets. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepa. Thank you so much for your presentation about Cornwall, and I think it's very interesting that once again we kind of highlighted the power of small, or that bottom-up approach was actually what is very successful in the research and the mapping project itself. So while we're still at Cornwall, I want to maybe move within the UK and head over to Nottingham, where Matt can present about Nottingham City of Literature.
Does this work? Yes, that's good. Okay, good afternoon, or as we'd say in Nottingham, "Ay up" is our word for hello there. So if you're ever there, remember that. "Ay up me ducks" is even better. I've come at rather short notice, so I'm going to be reading off a script, because I haven't had time to remember it all, so apologies for that. Can I just borrow a clicker if it's okay? Yes. Can I just wait for my slides to appear, and then I will... I can see them down here. They're up here. Okay, well, as I said, my name is Matt, and one thing I really, really like are stories. I like reading stories, and doing so has changed my life, as I suppose many people, stories will have changed their lives. But every now and then, I like to tell a story, and I like to tell it differently every time I tell it. So, it's story time. If you're all sitting comfortably, I will begin. Our story begins in the Midlands of England, in a city called... Oh, it's not working. Oh, I've gone too far. Apologies. In Nottingham. Nottingham is a city which, if I was to ask even anyone from Britain, I think they'd struggle to actually find it on a map. Robin Hood, yeah, he does make an appearance in this presentation, so everyone knows Robin Hood. It's a city which isn't in the north, it's not in the south, it doesn't really feel like a city in the Midlands as well. It's quite an awkward little city in many ways. So I would let you try and imagine where Nottingham is on this map of Great Britain. Put you out of your misery, it's just there. So we're somewhere in the middle. For reference purposes, you can find Nottingham now. So, a little bit of a few basic facts. Oh, thank you very much. A few basic facts about Nottingham. So, it's known as the Queen of the Midlands. It's one of the most important city in the Midlands of England, and is meant to be one of the prettiest. It is also has a population of 331,000 in the main city and about 768,000 in the wider county. It's the 9th largest city in the UK, and approximately 20% of our population are students. And the city itself is about 1,400 years old. So it's changed a lot in that time. Okay. There we go. Nottingham is famous for a few things. We practically invented football. The oldest professional football team in the world is the two most old professional football teams in the world are both from Nottingham. We made lace, the fabric lace. We were very famous for making that. We made bicycles, very famously made rally bikes. Pharmaceuticals, Boots the chemist is from Nottingham. We also were famous for making cigarettes, probably not so proud of that one these days. And we made much, much more. We were a city that used to sell to the world. And with all this work came words. And over time, we've seemed to have developed a very unique verbal vernacular. Oh, I don't know where I've jumped through there. Lord, excuse me, this is Lord Byron appearing early there. So in 2014, a group of writers based in Nottingham looked at our literary heritage and looked at the vast canon of important writers that have come from Nottingham. Writers such as Lord Byron, Alan Sillitoe, and D.H. Lawrence, David Herbert Lawrence. These are all names which are globally recognised and known around the world and changed literature in many ways, in their own ways. So we also looked at a contemporary scene. At the time, we have a very vibrant poetry scene. We've got a very active publishing scene. We have lots of writers doing stuff in the city. We also have two universities, Nottingham Trent University and the University of Nottingham. These are both real excuse me. These are real engines of creativity, each offering excellent courses in creative writing, English literature, and much, much more. They consistently produce great work and award-winning writers. We also have a very vibrant independent cultural scene in Nottingham, which also has this unique vernacular and really continues to defy definition. So these writers that got together in 2014, they thought, we should make more of this. We should do something with this. We seem to punch much well above our weight. We should do something about this. So we looked around how to do it and how to leverage our excellence with words for the greater good. And the UNESCO Creative Cities Network came up in conversations. A decision was made, we should be part of this. We should apply to be a city of literature. We are a modest city, so we thought our chances of getting this were remote. But being a city that is never afraid to try something new and something different, we shrugged our shoulders at the odds and carried on regardless. Now, it's worth talking a little first about where Nottingham was in 2014 from a socio-economic perspective. Oh, will it change? We were, by then, several years into a period of national financial austerity that had led to swinging cuts in the budgets of local authorities, and with this, large reductions in the amount of budget that could be allocated to the creative and cultural offer of a city, and by extension, the wider borough and county. Culture is all too often seen as a soft target when it comes to cutting services. Libraries are much easier to close down than care homes, although this should not be a binary decision. Library services across the UK had fell about 10% in the 4 years up to 2014. Other similar services were being cut. We weren't spared in Nottinghamshire. There's a grim irony in the fact that we were using D.H. Lawrence as a real figurehead for our bid, while at the same time the local council responsible for looking after his museum was closing it down. However, Nottingham really does know the value of culture. We know the value of creativity. We're a city that has always had many, many challenges, not least a strong degree of deprivation. We're a very working town, but one where poverty has always been much higher than the national average. And around the time of the millennium, we took on an unwelcome label as a city rife with gun crime. We were unfairly called Shottingham for a while, which wasn't the best title. It's a very unfair title, I think. The crime was exaggerated and sensationalised, but once a story sets in, once people start believing the story, it's very, very hard to shake off. We had to rewrite our story. We're also a city with a very transient population. I showed you a statistic earlier, 20% of the population are students, lots of moving around. We've also got high levels of immigration and large communities of first, second, third generation immigration in the city. Gives it a real cultural mix, but it does present some economic problems and socioeconomic problems. as it does. We're also a very busy city. We're never really content to sit and accept a single story. So our application to UNESCO was therefore endorsed by the City Council and the City Council Library Services, both universities. They could see the benefits that the status would confer upon the city. It was key for us to stress, should we be awarded the status, that we would not be seen as a replacement. We shouldn't be just seen as some cut-price version of what they were already doing, so they could slash what they were already doing. We had to be grassroots, we had to be driven by the artistic community of Nottingham. We had to provide a coherent narrative to what we have in the city. So our two great universities, University of Nottingham and Nottingham Trent University, were also in agreement, and they backed the bid. And they recognised a shared ethos. Culture matters. Culture and creativity are transformative. And Nottingham has to have a dedicated way of expressing this. The Cultural Cities Network is, of course, a global one, reflecting the university's own ambitions in being a truly international city, displayed not in just a high number of overseas students who choose to study there, but also the university's work in other countries to deliver their university experience at satellite campuses. And before I came here, I talked to several members of the university about this, expecting the relationship with West Java to be formative, and perhaps, you know, I was going out there as a pioneer in many ways. I found out, in fact, the university is very well acquainted with West Java. I was very much impressed by how much work has already got done. It's very typical of a university, and very good to see, and hopefully will provide friendship, collaboration, and so on. We were in a good position to put in our application, but we were aware that there was an existing UNESCO City of Literature in Norwich, which isn't too far. It's about 100 miles away from where we were. So we had to come up with an angle. We had to come up with a story, a USP. How would we use the designation to benefit Nottingham? Not just on an international level, but on a domestic one. What could we do to make the city better by having a status? Okay, I mentioned earlier, Nottingham is one of England's most deprived cities. And when it comes to literacy, we are found wanting. I'm speaking right now, I suppose, to an enlightened audience of people immersed in creativity and culture. I'm assuming with some confidence that most of you are avid readers. You take pleasure in words, I'm sure. You have used a command of language to develop yourselves and grow, as I have. I count myself amongst you in that way. Reading and writing have been transformative, I suppose, for many of you here, as it has for me. Yet, sadly, not all luxuriate in the warm glow that literacy brings. And in Nottingham, this is more pronounced than elsewhere. So, why is Why is literacy important? Poor literacy has wide-ranging detrimental effects. It's one of the greatest barriers to social mobility. Nottingham has terrible social mobility. It is linked to poor health outcomes, both physical health and mental health. There's higher incidence of criminality with illiteracy. Most recent data that I could find, published by the UK Ministry of Justice, shows that 57%, well over half, of the adult prisoners taking initial assessments had literacy levels below those expected of an 11-year-old child. So a few facts. Children enjoy reading and writing, are happy with their lives. Children born into communities with the most serious literary challenges have some of the lowest life expectancies in England. Illiteracy and poor literacy leads to a shorter, unhappier life. 1 in 11 disadvantaged children in the UK say they don't have a book of their own, not a single book of their own. 1 in 6, that's about 7.1 million adults in the UK, have very poor literacy skills. It's a quite serious problem we have. It's not just an education issue, it's a health issue, it's a social issue. It's an essential issue that inhibits a city to develop healthily and confidently. It is absolutely essential, therefore, that we challenge this. So we made it our mission, in a mission statement, you can see up here, to build a better world with words. We want to use our position in the network towards addressing this massive issue. We liaise with other organisations around the city and the wider area, and individuals and projects and so on, that were already working in the field. We identified a need through this to focus on a very crucial age, 14 to 25, what we call young people, not children, not adults, but the formative years. And this is because that's where a lot of people's literacy levels literally drop off a cliff. Normally, people's progression through education is fairly standard. It goes up and up and up, hits round about 14, and especially in young males, it flatlines. It stops going. We wanted to intervene and stop that happening. But how do you do this? How does a small organisation, and we were very small, at the time there was only one member of staff who got a salary, that was me. I was on my own. I had a board support me, obviously, but there was no one there. We now have 4 members of staff, which is still not a lot. We're all part-time. So how do you affect change with limited resources? How do you do this? How can you even begin to solve such deeply embedded issues and meet future challenges? There is one resource that we are extremely rich within Nottingham. We might not have a lot of wealth, we might not have a lot of things that other cities would have, but we do have something incredible, and that is a power of network. We are, and I'm aware this might be a bit of a Northern European reference, we are what you would call a Goldilocks city. The story of Goldilocks is she tried the porridge, it was too hot, she tried another, it was too cold, and then she found one which was just right. She found a bed that was too big, a bed that was too small, then one that she fitted perfectly. We're like that, isn't it, in Nottingham? The size of a city is perfect. We also have a sense of the underdog, that we've always been a city which has always been forgotten, left behind. We fight against that. So the size of it is important because we are not too large to sort of fragment into cliques and lose any sort of sense of coherence within the city, within organisations. And we're not too small to have no impact. We're just about the right size. If cultural networks enhance the power of cultural hubs for best practice, resource polling and so on, then we like to see Nottingham as a microcosm of that. We are united in this mission, expressed in different ways. We can't do much ourselves, but what we can do is we can provide an accelerant. We can act as a catalyst. We can connect different areas of Nottingham's cultural, educational, business, civic infrastructure through literature. We're in a unique position at the City of Literature to be able to develop ideas on both hyperlocal and on an international level. An example of this is I'm giving a speech today in Bandung on the Monday. On the Friday, I gave a similar speech, it was slightly different, to a group of school children walking around Nottingham city centre. That's how we work. I mentioned earlier that Nottingham needed a narrative back when we bid for the title. We looked at Nottingham's history and what it meant. And we saw that it was a story of rebellion. It was a story of fighting against tyranny, of uniting to ensure liberty and free expression are for all. Our 3 most famous writers show that. I wonder if you recognise any of these. Okay, Lord Byron, an aristocrat, writer, poet, politician, mercenary at one point. He challenged every single convention in not just his writing, but in this incredibly swashbuckling life that he led. He's truly an amazing figure. He died young. He died in Greece on the front line of the War of Independence. Not the usual way a poet goes. Then we have, if he comes up, when D.H. Lawrence, where are you? Oh, there you go. Then we have D.H. Lawrence, who was the working class son of an illiterate miner, from an unglamorous mining town called Eastwood, who blazed against the social injustices and hypocrisies of England that was still, at the time of his best work, was still bound by repressive convention and conformity. And then we have Alan Sillitoe. Alan Sillitoe was born in dire poverty in one of the worst, poorest areas of Nottingham. His parents were, his father was illiterate, his mother was quite unwell, and they were very, very poor. But he wrote himself out of the slum, he wrote himself out of poverty and into the hearts and minds of millions. His books are terrific. So these three figures reflect the city's spirit, that through its history has seen countless acts of standing up against despots and tyranny. We were integral in the kicking off the English Civil War, probably the most important period of English history to define the modern state. We birthed the Luddites, a group of people who questioned how technology was applied to a society 200 years ago, asking much the same questions back in the days of the Industrial Revolution, as we're starting to ask right now about the AI revolution. Is that Gather's pace? And of course, probably the most famous export, as you mentioned earlier, in Nottingham is, drumroll, Robin Hood. It's actually a guy called Tim, who's very nice. I live near him. He's Nottingham's official Robin Hood. Now, Robin Hood is legendary, of course. He's a man also who's nearly entirely story. He didn't, I don't want to break it to you too hard, but he didn't really exist as such. I know, sorry. But it's a story that is so, it resonates so strongly, because it's just a simple story of an individual who gathers people together to stand up against tyranny and protect the poor, protect the vulnerable. It's a story that really echoes around the world and is interpreted in multitudinous different ways in different cultures, how they perceive Robin Hood. He's just a trope which works, and he's very much Nottingham. Yet, when we talk about these things in the past, there's a worry that heritage gathers dust, and it doesn't inform and inspire us if it doesn't inform and inspire us right now. Our rebel writers, that I mentioned earlier, if their works don't have a fire that still roars in the writings of our contemporary writers, it's useless using them, but it does. We recognise the same things in the writers who, all those three writers I showed you earlier, all dead now. Their work lives on. By harnessing this and giving Nottingham a narrative, we're strongly positioned to not just survive in challenging times, but to thrive. So we put the bid in. We were not expecting to get it. And then on December the 11th, 2015, which was also my birthday, which was a very good day, we became a city of literature. I got a phone call from UNESCO to say that we're impressed with our bid and they'd be happy to have us on the network. It was quite a day. A lot of champagne was drunk that night. Since then, we have been involved in countless projects. I would be sitting here all week. I'm sure you'd be very, very bored very, very quickly if I was to even give a brief explanation of each one. We have been involved in so many projects. Our work has... this year... Oh, am I still on? This work that we've been doing over the last 8 years has been so successful that in April of this year, the prestigious status of an Arts Council England National Portfolio Organisation, which guarantees us 3 years of project funding, was awarded to us. It's a very difficult thing to be awarded, especially for an organisation which is so small. Yet they recognised our power to be a catalyst, and we got the funding. This has really been a reflection how we have become an integral part of helping Nottingham develop. Excuse me. It's a source of pride that I can say Nottingham, at a time when other areas in Great Britain, if the slide comes up, it's a source of pride at a time when in the rest of Britain library services are being cut very severely. But our city will be opening a brand new central library this summer, which we've been really heavily involved in developing to ensure it lights fires in young people's imaginations. We've worked on talking about how it should be designed, how it should be welcoming, what we should have in there to inspire children. We've talked to children, we've talked to young people to find out what they want. And we've put all this in, and very soon this library will be open. Now, there are many ways of measuring success. And when you work with long-standing issues, it's not easy to see progress. We can't flick a switch and everyone starts reading. It doesn't work like that. Change happens over lifetimes. However, the existence of this library is about as tangible an outcome as you can imagine on how Nottingham UNESCO City of Literature has positively benefited the city. So this is our story that's been greatly compressed into a small speech, and with many main characters, subplots, and so on left out for the sake of brevity. Right now, we share many stories with cities around the world, and we're all richer for it. Jakarta is on the network now as well. We're very, very proud to say. I look forward to working with them soon. So, what is it about stories? When we tell stories about ourselves, which are unique, and people learn from us, that's culture. When we tell stories and people find connection, they find commonality, that is humanity. We want to do both. So I thank you all for listening to Nottingham City of Literature's story and giving me an opportunity to hear today yours. And together we can build better worlds with words. But before I go, I want to address something you might be thinking when I showed you writers earlier. All the slides I've shown you so far have all been male, white males, pale male, stale. So it might seem that we're not exactly a very diverse city. Well, on the contrary. While our history may be dominated by white males, we can't help that, we can't go back in time, but today's Nottingham is rich in its diversity. A recent project we ran with Nottingham Trent University involved working with photography students to document some of our many brilliant female writers. And this exhibited just last week. And here's some of them: Panya Banjoko, Miranda Seymour, Shreya Sen Handley, and I can't remember the first one. Becky Cullen was the first one. So we have a wonderful set there. The story is forever changing. Our job is to change it for the better. So thank you very much for listening to me today, and have a good rest of conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matt, for sharing about Nottingham and how you use literature to transform lives and create opportunities through literature. So we are now flying back into Indonesia, and returning last but not least, we have Mas Alex Sihar from the Ministry of Education and Culture. Mas Alex.
Hello. Do you hear me?
Yes.
No? Okay. Thank you. Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for being here and be part of this discussion. After we heard a lot about the experience, the examples coming from initiatives from Georgetown, the northern part of Malaysia, Saint Etienne, Nottingham, and of course, Cornwall, and of course Cornwall, how the people initiatives, how the culture moving forward to better and better civilizations. At this part, I have to talk in a bigger sense about policies, and yeah, compared to other places, Indonesia quite big to compare, and I'm going to talk about the how to push forward this kind of initiatives that coming from peoples, coming from cities, and how do we prepare it from the state government. I have to apologize that my presentation materials is not ready yet to convert it to English because of a very last minute appointment to make it here. But I will ask Ms. Kemi to help me translate it along these discussions. But actually what I want to talk about this Dana Abadi Kebudayaan is the Indonesian endowment fund for culture. It started, the ideas started long ago, 20, 30 years ago, but it becoming more and more real when we had the law of advancement of culture in 2017. So in Indonesia, in 2017, we have this new law called the advancement of culture. It's not the law of culture. So consciously, we need to advance it, not only preserve it, but also to push it forward, to evolve it. That's why we call it the advancement of culture, along with the previous laws on heritage, on films, and many other around the cultural sector. But the law of 2017, law number 5, 2017, is quite, how to say it, is quite significantly moved a lot of the perspective, state's perspective on how to manage the culture in Indonesia. So basically, I'm standing in front of it. Basically, the law itself says that the state government, the provincial government, and the regencies and cities government have to do, no. I mean to point it. How to, not this one. No laser?
Nggak ada.
No laser?
Nggak ada lasernya.
Okay. The government supposed to, one, to protect, the red one, pelindungan, to protect and to preserve. The biggest part have to done by the government is to protect and preserve. And the second is to foster development and to foster the utilization of culture. So the position of a government quite different between to protect, to preserve, and to develop and to foster development and to foster the utilization. Because at this perspective of this law, the development and the utilization of culture is initiative done by the public, not by the state. The state have to create the atmosphere to make it more and more better. And the last one is also the green, the yellow one, pembinaan. The state supposed to empower the people who works or who initiates in the sector of culture. But how to finance it? That's the biggest problem. Because as we know all, Indonesia is too big and our state budget is too small for this big country. So how to finance it? As the law said that the first obligation of the government is to protect and to preserve, so all of the initiatives, all the activities that connects to preservation and protection is financed by the state budget, provincial budget, the regency's budget, and the city's budget. But when the initiatives coming in the sets of development and utilization, and it's more to private sector's budget, public money, and everything. So it crosses like this. So private sector will do a lot in the development and utilization, And the state budget is going to be focused on protection and preservation. So when we do heritage building restorations, candi itu bahasa Inggris, temples, yeah. Temples restoration, temples protections, old heritages preservation, from wayang to batik to everything. It costs, and it's going to be protected by the state budget. But when we do developing it, it's shared between the state budget and finally goes all to the private sectors. In the perspective of this law and the perspective of the state at the moment, tourism and cultural and creative industries are lies here in the development and mostly in utilization. So how do we help? How do we push forward the development done by the initiative of the people, initiative of the communities, to get along with the agenda, the big agenda of the state on cultural advancement? In 2018, and it's finally done in 2022, we have this called the strategi kebudayaan, the cultural strategy. It's not appropriate translation.
Cultural strategy?
Yeah, but not. Okay. In Indonesia, we call it strategi kebudayaan. It consists of all the problems, the biggest problem, the biggest adversaries that we had at the moment up till 2045, and how to do it in the global sense. There's 7 points that we do, that we recognize as adversaries, and also how to tackle it. And one of it is to implore the financing of cultural sectors. And because of this Okay. And after that, at 2018, the president, because of the law, said that we have to create this endowment fund for culture, and the cultural strategy said that this endowment for culture is supposed to push forward the initiative of the public on cultural sectors. And then on 2018, the president himself said that this is the time to do it, to have the endowment fund for culture. And finally, the endowment fund done by 2020. The first block grant done by the Ministry of Finance, put it as an endowment, is in 2020. As it said before, the endowment fund is used to facilitate the initiatives coming from the public. It cannot be financing, it cannot use to finance the government's agenda. It's supposed to finance the public initiatives, and it focus on development and utilization. In 2021, after the first block grant used by the Ministry of Finance, in 2021, there's a presidential decree on how to manage the fund, the endowment fund. So the endowment fund is managed by 5 ministries under one big umbrella. There's a Educational Endowment Fund, Research Endowment Fund, I'm sorry, the third one, the educational, the research, the higher education endowment fund, and the last one is the cultural endowment fund. It's managed by these 5 ministries. We have the coordinating ministry in PMK atau apa ya? Bahasa Inggrisnya. Pembangunan manusia dan kebudayaan.
Human development and culture.
Human development and culture sectors. And then Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Education, Research, Cultural Research and Technology, Menteri Agama, and also the head of BRIN, the Badan Riset Nasional. In execution, that's the board, the big board are the 5 ministries, and the execution is done by 2 ministries. The Ministry of Finance to manage the basic fund, the base fund, the endowment itself, but how to implement it, how to reach out to people, how to get the selection process for the receiver, the grantees, is done by the Ministry of Education, Culture, Research and Technology. So there's 2 bodies working together for this. The first one is LPDP. For the last 10 years, LPDP has been managing the endowment fund for education, been doing a lot of scholarships for Indonesian people to go abroad, and they are the one who manage the endowment. And then there's Dana Indonesiana in the side of the Ministry of Education, Culture, Research and Technology, who manage the implementation of the fund, of the grantees, from the selection process up till the programmatic sense. So this is the first endowment fund in Indonesia that is involving stakeholders from the start. We have a lot of endowment funds in Indonesia. We have endowment funds for climate change, we have endowment funds for Haji, we have endowment funds for education, for research and everything. This is the smallest one. It started to 2 triliun rupiah, 2 trillion rupiah. Started the basic fund is started 2 trillion rupiah at 2020, and now raised up to 5 trillion rupiah in the end of 2022. And from the first management, we involve the stakeholders from the programmation, how to create programs, how to create programs, and how to create a selection of the initiative that can be a grantee for this endowment fund. We have, how to say it, we have experts working along with us, experts, cultural experts, arts from the side of arts, histories and everything. We have Ibu Harimbi Heruputri, now the member of Komnas HAM, Bapak Aswar Anas, at the moment he's the Minister of Human Resources, I think. And Pak Budiman Sujatmiko, Ibu Christine Hakim, our actress, Ibu Heni Supolo. Ibu Heni Supolo is one of the pedagogue, the best pedagogue ever had in Indonesia. Bapak Ignas Clayden, one of the philosopher, and Ibu Ina Silas, one of the experts on museum. Bapak James Modo, one of the big names in Papua. Ibu Kamala Chandra Kirana and the late Ibu Linda Humarabidin, Ibu Nani Zulminarni has been helping us a lot on the perspective of arts, perspective of gender and everything. And even Pak Ricky Pesik from the perspective of creative economy, and Pak Sangkot Marzuki from the perspective of research. So we have good board of, how to say it, a board that's been helping us creating programs. Okay. We try to have this pilot programming back in 2020. It's not using the endowment fund yet. We were using the state budget at that moment. We are trying to have a experience how to manage the disbursement processes, and this is what we got. 196 beneficiaries from across Indonesia, and it's not quite diverse, and it's centered in Java. Yes, but we understand that this is one of the adversaries that we are working on, how to create it more and more accessible, more and more inclusive, because the basic soul of this endowment, how to make it more and more sustainable initiatives in the public. So it's supposed to be more and more accessible from time to time. So after this first experience, first piloting, the board, the Dewan program, creating this affirmative policies, policies of affirmation, to make it the spread better rather than this. It focuses in Jakarta, it focuses in Jawa, almost none coming from Papua, almost none received by the Ambon and North Maluku. And then we have this in the second year, affirmative policies, how to make it more inclusive. Because inclusivity is one of the hottest topic in the creative economy also, right? So at first, how to make it, the first affirmation policy is for we call it in Indonesia, daerah 3T. Terjauh, terluar, terdepan. The farthest, the furthest, tertinggal. Oh, saya kesulitan menerjemahkannya. Terjauh. So basically, this when we saw the map of Indonesia, we have a lot of in the further parts of Indonesia that couldn't receive all the attention. So we have the affirmative policy for that. So if the proposals or the initiative coming from the daerah 3T, the further, what's wrong? Did I do something?
Bisa dibantu slides-nya?
Oh, okay. Okay. We have affirmative policies for the furthest part of Indonesia. The second one, we have the affirmative policies for the provinces that is having index, Indonesian Cultural Development Index. In Indonesia, we have Cultural Development Index that is derivative from the UNESCO's CDIs. We've been working on it since 2018, 2019. So we actually have, in the state perspective, we actually have measurement on development of culture, including the economy of culture as one of 9 dimensions on it. So we're focusing on the proposals or initiatives coming from provinces that is lower than the average the average of the CDIs in the national level. And then we have also affirmative policies on disabilities, affirmative policies on gender, women, elderlies, and also affirmative policies for initiative that promotes cross-religion, cross-believing initiatives. So this kind of affirmative policies that we've been trying to apply since 2021 have this impact. It spread better. It's lower number, but it spreads better. So it's more and more inclusive. We actually do it with the money coming from the endowment in 2022, and the receivers, the beneficiaries are 300 initiatives across Indonesia, and it spreads quite well. It's not good yet in the western part, the most eastern part of Indonesia, but we're working on it. So this is what we have at the moment, 2022, 2023. Who are the receiver? Who are the beneficiaries? The beneficiaries can be individuals, can be a group, or masyarakat adat, or organization. And the third one is institutions. So these 3 kind of receiver can be the beneficiaries of Dana Indonesiana, and it's been done since last year, and it's working quite well. And okay, at 2023, we are opening 12 categories of funding. That's mainly focused on sustainability of the organizations, and also all the initiatives that creates spaces for new spaces. It means also the utilization of the whole old heritage and everything for the activities of culture or activities of art. And the latest one was launched by the ministry himself at Cannes Film Festival 2 weeks ago, is this one. In Indonesian language, we call it the Dana Pendamping Karya untuk Distribusi Internasional. So it's actually the match funding scheme for international distribution of Indonesian titles. It can be films, it can be books, it can be performances, and the support, the grant, can be used in any kind of needs that the parties needed. So it can be match fund coming from international or foreign grant, and also the later one, the Dana Pendamping Karya untuk Stimulan Karya Unggulan, it can be match funded by investment of a local money, local investment from Indonesia. So that's the latest 2 categories that been had launched 2 weeks ago. And we're going to open the new batch for this Dana Indonesiana maybe in the next 3 weeks or 1 month from now. It's been working administratively for that. And yeah, that will be all. Thank you. Oh, maybe this is one thing that I have to say, because this initiative, not this initiative, this policy on endowment fund quite works in the national level. But of course, we are so big and we can, Indonesia is so big and maybe we can divide it, this objective of strengthening people through initiatives that they done by also spreading the endowment itself. Since 2022, there's a new law in financial sector called, I don't know how to translate it in English. Undang-Undang Perimbangan Keuangan Daerah dan Pusat dan Daerah. In that law, that's a financial law. In that law, the state, or not the state, the law said that every provincial government or every regency government or city government can start develop their own endowment fund. So maybe West Java trying to push it, maybe West Java can push it through parliament, the local parliament, to have this kind of endowment, and we can consult and we can help to do it. So we can push and we can facilitate cultural hubs, creative hubs that is initiated by local people here to get better and better. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pa Alex, for the presentation. It's really definitely a groundbreaking program, the Dana Indonesiana, and I hope that cultural practitioners, creative hubs can utilize and maximize this opportunity better. So we have actually reached the end of the session, but we would like to perhaps, as a kind of closing remark, we unfortunately don't have much time for taking questions from the audience, but perhaps I'd like to invite all of the panelists to give one last closing remark that you would like to share with the audience today. Maybe we can start with, who wants to go first? Looks like either Matt or Hamdan is ready.
Well, I don't have one prepared, I'm afraid, but I think just the fact we are here today, and I'm presently sitting in a chair at the other side of the world from where I normally sit, is testament to what culture and creativity does. It does pull us closer together, and for the better. I mean, UNESCO Creative Cities Network was all set up to enhance relationships between cities, which transcend borders, and I think events like this do so extremely well. So thank you. I'm very, very honoured to be invited. So thank you, and thank you for listening to me and us today. Thank you.
So I just would like, I discovered your country for the first time, and it's a really amazing country. I love it for different things, for culture, for craft, design, cooking. I love your cook. And I think it's really important to discover different country, different culture, and across and connecting every country, city to imagine a new project and a green project. And I'm sure everything is possible. Thank you very much to invite me, and thank you for listening to me.
I think, for me, I think the key takeaway I would probably say is that an economy based on culture is no longer a dream, but rather an emerging reality. focusing our efforts towards a culture-based economic development is going to be the path forward. I congratulate the government for financing it, because we see that government is always going to be the lead investor to crowd in private sector participation, so that you can de-risk project and you can make it more attractive to then bring in additional capital that is really needed to support and sustain these cultural efforts. Now, what I will say that once this engine starts, it becomes self-financing. So the approach of an endowment I think, is most welcome. I think it's on the right path. I think the key to go forward is about making sure that we kind of connect government, private sector, and community in a much more dynamic manner. It will only then ensure that we are able to build that resilience to overcome the challenges that's always constantly going to be there. It can be challenges that are emerging, like climate change, which is not very far away. It's in the near horizon, or issue of inclusive participation and development, or even the case of what you call, I think I heard someone say that it's not about competition, but maybe it's about coopetition, cooperating and competing, because the whole idea of ensuring that you get the best outcomes possible.
Maybe I would like to underline what Ahmad said before, that you cannot make tourism as an objective. It's an impact. We have to create the atmosphere together between the government and the people and the private sectors. How to create the environment, the atmosphere for the people itself, how to develop itself. Tourism just an impact. It will become good tourism objective when it's also have the good objective by its own people, right? So that's not that kind of perspective needed to be held by all local governments and the private sectors also. So not only focusing on tourism, but how to develop what we have at the moment in this place. Thank you.
Thank you, Pa Alex. And one more, we have Deepa, who hopefully is still online. Deepa, would you like to give a closing statement?
Can you see me? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, good. I just want to say that I wish that I were with you, because when Alex was talking about the food, I can just imagine all that you are experiencing there. And there's a reason that the culinary arts are considered part of the creative industries in Indonesia. My key takeaways would be just again echoing what was said earlier around the power of small, the power of slow, and centering communities at the heart of culture. And also going forward, as you have this increased investment, is kind of embedding measurements for social impact. So you're capturing that as well as the economic impacts of culture in order to present a kind of holistic view of the impacts of culture on local people. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepa. And yes, I believe that the power small is perhaps the buzzword of today's session. How do we support people? How do we ensure that the bottom-up approach provides a meaningful engagement for the people of a city or of a region or a hub? And with that, I'd like to thank my brilliant panelists for their generosity in sharing their time and insights, the organizers, the West Java Provincial Government and Kreasi Jabar, and of course other partners, British Council, UNESCO, ICCN, the Goethe Institute, and IFI Indonesia. Thank you very much, and we hope you can join as many sessions as you can over the next 2 days of the conference. Thank you.
Okay, I would like to request the moderator and the speakers please remain at stage because we will now enter the giving of token of appreciation from the government of West Java to the moderators and speakers. Okay, once again, would like to invite the speakers from the first session to please stand in front of the table. And we will now witness the giving of token of appreciation from the government of West Java, which will be given by the Secretary of Second Commission from West Java People's Representative, Mr. Yunandar. Would you please? This is the token of appreciation from the government of West Java to the moderators and speakers from the first session. And for DIPA, the token of appreciation will be mailed to your house, so don't you worry, because we will still going to give the token of appreciation even though you are joining us online today. And after the giving of the token of appreciation, I would like to request all the moderators and speakers to please take pictures together. And I would like to request DIPA to please turn on your camera so you can still be able to take pictures together with all the speakers and moderator from the first session. Thank you. Okay, on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Second shot? Okay, on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm applause for the moderator and speakers from the first session. And thank you, Mr. Yunandar, who have given the token of appreciation from the government of West Java to the moderators and also to the speakers. Okay, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, now we will enter the 10 minutes break, okay? So we will now give you 10 minutes break to actually enjoy the refreshment. Okay, serve in the back of the ballroom. And then if you want to go to the toilet break also, please do. And now we will enter the 10 minutes break. And now we will going back at at 4:32 p.m. Okay, so please enjoy your break, and then we will back here again in another 10 minutes for the second session of the first day ConnectiCity 2023. Thank you very much.